Hello, everyone, and it's Sunday. You know what that means. Time for our next WrestleMania rebooking video. We are now working on rebooking WrestleMania 39, which is when WrestleMania went back to Hollywood. This was also one of the first WWE's under Triple H's control because, as you may or may not recall, the previous summer before this was when Vince McMahon you know, resigned or retired, whatever you want to call it, because of all the so-called allegations or whatever against him and everything. And he was gone. He stepped out from WWE, Triple H take over, and this began pretty much what many people consider a renaissance era for WWE from the summer of 2022 and up until WrestleMania 40. It felt like WWE had pretty much got back its aura, and everything just seemed so much better with Triple H taking control. He brought back so many, released talents that McMahon had let go, including, and it just felt like a really good time to be a WWE fan because they were so popular at the time. Sales were going up, tickets were, being sold out and everything. And many people consider this time period to be one of the WWE's best, and I do myself. Like I missed this whole what was it, almost 2 year time period right here, until TKO took over and pretty much monopolized everything and wanted to charge an arm and a leg for every little fucking thing. And yeah, it's not as great as it was during this whole 2 year time period. But like I said, this whole time period here was a great time to be a WWE fan. Like I said, with Triple H in charge, it made things feel fresh. It made things feel a lot better. Moral was up and everything. Like it just felt to be a good time. Like we finally had someone in charge who knew what they were doing. And then, of course, McMahon came back. I think it was January this year to be put back in charge. I don't know if it was this year or the following year, I guess, to like pretty much do the whole sale and everything of what they were doing. Um, so there was some type of McMahon influence going into this WrestleMania, but not as much as they were saying. But for the most part, this was a very, very good WrestleMania. This one and the following years were like considered by many to be two of the best, and I can't disagree. It really was a good WrestleMania, and I love the theme song for it. And I love how they did the whole return to Hollywood. When they announced that they were going to be back in Hollywood, many people, including myself, okay, well, they're going back to Hollywood. They had to redo the movie trailer commercials they did almost 20 years prior to that. And if you remember, the last time they were in Los Angeles for WrestleMania 21 in 2005, in the build up to WrestleMania, they did like little like parodies of like the movie trailers with the superstars, and they were very well received, and everyone loved them. And they were saying, okay, well, maybe they'll do it again for this WrestleMania, which was also in Los Angeles. They did, but me personally, I don't think they were as great as the original ones. You had Seth Rollins as the Joker. You had Rhea Ripley, I think, like as 11 from Stranger Things, and I honestly don't even remember what the other ones were, to be honest. Um, I more remember the ones from the 2005 version. I guess that goes to show which ones are actually better. Um, but it was still a nice setup. The stage for this was absolutely amazing. The whole atmosphere just felt much better. And then it was an outdoor WrestleMania. Like I said, I think it was I have a dome over. I'm not too sure. Because I actually watched this WrestleMania in a very unique way. I was actually at Disney World when this WrestleMania took place, and that's very very rare for me not to watch WrestleMania at home because I have told anyone that knows me knows how much of a wrestling fan I am, and they know that when it comes to WrestleMania, do not ask me to go anywhere. Do not ask me to go, over your house unless you're going to watch WrestleMania because that is the one pay-per-view that I will not miss. So, like I think I told my sister when my first nephew was born, back in 2014. I was like, because my nephew was born on April 5th, 2014, and WrestleMania that year was, I think, a few days before or a few days after. I remember telling him, if you go into labor to have your kid, wait till after WrestleMania, or so that way you don't miss anything. So I was joking, but still, WrestleMania is the one show that I do not like to miss. I don't want to go somewhere and just like watch it on my phone or whatever. I would rather watch it at home on the big screen, and everything, food and all that. But this year was actually the one exception because I was actually me and my partner at the time were going to Disney World for like our, I don't know, like fifth or sixth time, not to brag, but so I was like, what the heck, because I love going there and everything. And so what actually happened was we were supposed to leave on a Friday, but our plane um got delayed until the following day because it was like a rainstorm. So we left Saturday night, and then I was at the airport, watching while waiting for a flight. I was watching, night one of WrestleMania, and I actually thought I could be slick and beat the system. I was like, I wonder I, um, if I like, watch it, on the Peacock. It was still on Peacock at the time. Like maybe if I watch it now and just let it keep playing, and then maybe put my phone on airplane mode while it's playing on. I could still watch it on the plane. That did not work out. It didn't because once I got on the plane, I turned my phone on airplane mode. It turned off. So like that didn't work out. So so why are you wearing jacket pants? It's hot as hell.
We're inside.
Yeah. So dang, at least you got the air on. So yeah, that didn't work out too well. So I probably missed like a few matches in the middle, and then as soon as I got off the plane, I turned my phone back on. I caught the main event and everything, and then night two, I watched it while I was at Disney World, pretty much, on and off, checking what was going on, and then we're waiting for the fireworks. So I was like, okay, well I did past time, so let me watch WrestleMania. So it was. This is probably one of the most unique ways I watched it because usually I do not miss WrestleMania despite what's going on. So I always tell people ahead of time that that is my do not disturb weekend. So if your birthday's that weekend, you know, happy birthday to you. I probably will not go to your birthday that week. So yeah. So anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into what the WWE gave us for WrestleMania 39. Kicking off night one, we had the United States Championship. Austin Theory defending against John Cena. Um, Austin Theory won, retained the title. And I think this match was first because I think John Cena had to a fatal four way, what they called a tag team showcase. It was the Viking Raiders against Alpha Academy, the Street Profits, and a team of Ricochet and Braun Strowman. This was basically a tag team version of the Andre Battle Royal. Was here's just throw four teams out there and just let them, go. Pretty much just a way to get them on the card. And it was actually pretty good for what it was, especially like in less than 10 minutes. They actually put on a really decent showing, and the match was won by the Street Profits. I don't remember them thinking that maybe some number one contender match. I think it was just pretty much a standard fatal four way just to get these four teams on the card. Up next, we had Logan Paul versus Seth Rollins. Um, this was around the time when Seth Rollins had pretty much just went back to being a babyface, and they tried to use Logan Paul as a heel, but he just doesn't really work out as one. I mean, as a babyface, he just doesn't really work out as a babyface. The guy's like a natural heel. And I actually missed the theme song. I mentioned it before. I missed Logan Paul's original theme song, not the one he has now. And Seth Rollins was the winner for this match. Up next, we had a six-woman tag team match. It was a team of Damage Control, which at the time I think was Bayley, Dakota, and Io Sky, against the team of Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus and Lita. Of course, Trish and Lita coming out of retirement, well, semi-retirement because they're always coming in and out. Team of Becky Lynch against Damage Control. And this is around the time I think Becky and Trish had won the tag team titles. And then Trish turned heel, I think like the next night or something, or a few weeks later. Of course, they got the win. Um, yeah, growing up, I think I was more into Lita than I was Trish, if I recall. But I'm pretty sure a lot of boys my age growing up were in love with Trish Stratus. Up next, we had Dominic Mysterio versus Rey Mysterio. Um, I think this is around the time when I was getting on the plane and I had to turn my phone off, so I didn't get to really watch the match live. I had to like go back and watch the replay. Dominic had a pretty cool entrance and everything, and the match was, of course, won by Rey Mysterio, where he beat Dominic in front of his parents, his sister, and his mom. Up next, we had the SmackDown Women's Championship, Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte, basically a rematch from WrestleMania 4 years prior. Well, actually, 3 years prior from they had, as you recall, they had a match during the pandemic WrestleMania for the NXT Women's Championship. This time it was a SmackDown Women's Championship. Charlotte was the defending champion against Rhea Ripley. This was when Rhea Ripley had pretty much become the whole mommy version of her, and this was actually like one of the best matches of the night, if not one of the best women's matches at WrestleMania, and a lot better than the original match they had at WrestleMania 36. And Rhea Ripley would win and go on to um, win the SmackDown Women's Championship. And I think this is when they changed the title to the new title that they have now when they finally like, got rid of the Smack. I might be mistaken, but yeah. Up next, we had an impromptu match. It was The Miz versus Pat McAfee, if I recall. I think The Miz and fellow guest host Snoop Dogg were out talking about the attendance and everything. And I don't really remember. I don't really remember how it led to Pat McAfee coming out and having a quick, like 3 minute match with The Miz, and it was won by Pat McAfee. Uh, then the main event of night one was for the undisputed tag team championships. This is how you know Vince McMahon was no longer in charge, because he had the tag team titles defended in the main event of WrestleMania, and we all know Vince McMahon hated tag team wrestling for whatever reason. And then in the main event, we had the Usos defending against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. This was right in the middle of the whole Bloodline saga, and the build up to this was just absolutely amazing, with the whole thing of Sami Zayn being an honorary Us, and then Kevin Owens and his lifelong vendetta against Roman Reigns, and then Sammy finally, turning against Roman to join Kevin, and this led to this tag team match right here, which was absolutely amazing. And when I got off the plane, this is the match that was going on, so I was able to catch like the second half of this match until I saw the replay, a few days later when I got home. So yeah, and then going on to night two of WrestleMania, we have them starting kicking things off with the Vince McMahon match that supposedly he put together for this night. It was Omos versus Brock Lesnar. A lot of people were really surprised to see that this was the match they had for Brock Lesnar this year. Yeah, and for what it was, Brock Lesnar won in about 5 minutes. Up next, we had a women's version of the Fatal Four Way Tag Team Showcase from the night before. It was a team of Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez against Sachi and Natalia, Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville, and Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. And I actually like this match because I'm pretty much about there's 8 of these women in this match. 6 of them are considered some of my favorites. Nothing against Raquel and Shayna. I mean, I like them as wrestlers, but they weren't actually my favorites. So it actually would have been fine no matter what team won. And that the match was ended up being won by Ronda and Shayna, and I believe they would go on to win the women's tag team titles a couple months later, and then eventually Ronda was out of WWE. This is also surprising for many people because they didn't expect Ronda to be in such a nothing match. They thought she would have had like a bigger showcase or whatever the case was, but lo and behold, and then she wasn't, like I said, her second run in WWE wasn't all that. It only lasted like about a year or so, and it just wasn't as great as it was when she made her first WrestleMania, or first run in WWE. Up next, we had a triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship. Gunther defending against Sheamus and Drew McIntyre. Another match that pretty much stole the night between three hard hitting guys. Um, One of those, as they call a banger. Gunther would win and will go on to hold the Intercontinental title for at least another year. Up next, we had the Raw Women's Championship. Bianca Belair defending against Asuka, who had won the Elimination Chamber because Rhea Ripley had won the Royal Rumble, so she challenged Charlotte. Um, this is like I said, when Triple H took over, he made like a lot of creative differences, and they kind of brought back Asuka's her character from when she was in Japan and everything with the face paint and everything. So they like tried to pretty much bring her back up as a monster heel. And I really thought they were gonna give her the title here, but they had Bianca retain, and I think Asuka won it the following month at Backlash. So up next, we had another impromptu match. It was The Miz, who was originally supposed to have an impromptu match with Shane McMahon. But as you recall, Shane blew his quad like 5 seconds into the match when he did a leapfrog. They had to improvise. Snoop Dogg took his place and beat The Miz in like with one of the worst looking people's elbow ever. But hey, shit happens. What can you do? Up next, we had a Hell in a Cell match. It was Edge versus Finn Balor. I think this is the match that was out when I was waiting for the fireworks show to start, and then it finished, and then we went to have dinner at um, the I think the Cinderella Castle. And as we were waiting for the food, I had my phone like off to the side so I could watch it and everything, which was nobody minded. And then this was like the pretty much a year long feud that had been going on between Edge and the original version of the Judgment Day when Finn Balor had joined Judgment Day, kicked out Edge, and they pretty much had like a feud that lasted almost pretty much a whole year. And this was the culmination of that. Edge came out, with a nice badass entrance. Finn Balor came out as a demon. Edge would go on to win and bring an end to this year long feud. Up next, we have our main event before night two. We had the undisputed WWE Championship. Roman Reigns defending against Cody Rhodes. And of course, everybody and their dog thought that Cody Rhodes was going to win the title here. And I think they were more surprised when he lost. And I was surprised myself. Like, I really thought, okay, Cody's going to be the one to defeat Roman Reigns. And he did not, and that led to the whole finishing the story for another year. And so people thought, okay, well, Cody Rhodes didn't win. They talked two things, well, three things maybe. Is he going to win the title at SummerSlam in a rematch? Is he not going to win? Is somebody else going to beat Roman for that title? Or are they really going to hold off another year? And if that's the case, are they really going to go with Cody Rhodes winning the Royal Rumble for a second year in a row, which they did? So there were many questions going on. And maybe people thought, okay, this definitely has to be a Vince McMahon decision because it was still slightly having input in creative at this time. And but yeah, was the wait worth it? In a way, yes, because the following year we had one of the best main events ever. It was like watching, a movie and all that. So pretty much, and people were comparing this to, the MCU and Marvel, that this was the Infinity War match, and a year later was Endgame, which is pretty much true. And if you saw that match, if you saw that movie, you know exactly what they were talking about, and you know what those comparisons really are. So that was WrestleMania 39. Let's go on to see how I would have booked WrestleMania. And this is actually one of the latest WrestleManias that I book because I usually, fantasy book these like around January Royal Rumble time. Um, I actually did this one. I want to say like maybe towards late January, early February, because I think I was in Mexico on vacation at the time, and I remember being at breakfast at the hotel, and I was actually booking this in my head. I'm like, okay, well if I have this person here and this person here, where can I put this person at? So yeah, I was on vacation in Mexico trying to rebook WrestleMania, so that tells you how much wrestling means to me. Being on vacation and still trying to fantasy book these things. So let's go ahead and kick things off with WrestleMania Night 1. We're going to kick things off with my personal favorite, a multi-man ladder match. But this is not for a title because, now I'll say this, usually I don't go off what rumors are, like who might show up or who might return in time for WrestleMania. I don't really go off of rumors like that. I usually fantasy book these, how, not what exactly what I would want to happen, but more like in a logical way, like, okay, I think this could happen. Um, but there was a rumor going around at the time that I actually did use, that they were supposedly going to bring back the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania and get rid of the Money in the Bank pay per view because Triple H was pretty much doing away with a lot of the theme pay-per-views like Hell in a Cell and TLC. They pretty much like got rid of those. And one of the ones he did actually end up keeping was Money in the Bank. They did not have the Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania, obviously. But there was a rumor that they were going to do it, and I actually thought they were because there were so many people being left off the card that weren't on there, especially a lot of the superstars that Vince McMahon and Triple H had brought back. I'm like, okay, they definitely got to do something. They got so many stars because the roster was like so jam packed at this time when they were bringing everybody back. Um, which they did not. So, but I ended up going with the rumor anyway because obviously I love multi-man ladder matches, and of course, yeah. So we're gonna kick things off with a Money in the Bank ladder match. In this timeline of mine, they do end up going with the Money in the Bank, and honestly, I think Money in the Bank would probably be better off as the WrestleMania tradition as it originally started. Because at least you have something to look forward to at WrestleMania. You know you're going to get a nice multi man match. You're going to get a lot of names on the card in the one match. As much as I love the Money in the Bank pay per view because it has ladder matches, I think it would be better off as a WrestleMania tradition. Since they don't have the Andre the Battle Royal on the main show no more, I think that would be a good way to get, what deserved people on the card for that. So that's my personal opinion. I think Money in the Bank should go back to being a WrestleMania exclusive. Because I remember when they first, did Money in the Bank and they would have like qualifying matches and everything. You're like, okay, who's gonna get on the WrestleMania card? Who's gonna be on that ladder match? It was nice, and then that's my personal opinion. I think Money in the Bank would be better off as a WrestleMania, thing, or even at a SummerSlam or something if you don't want to have it at WrestleMania. But I think as its own pay-per-view, yes, it has its iconic moments like with CM Punk and John Cena here in Chicago back in 2011. Um, but then I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. So anyway, we're kicking things off with the Money in the Bank ladder match. We have Sheamus, Matt Riddle, Damian Priest, AJ Styles, LA Knight, Solo Sikoa, Bronson Reed, and Shinsuke Nakamura. I think that's a pretty good, lineup. I don't have down who I would have won, but I think obviously with this being a Money in the Bank match, I think I would probably give the win to Damian Priest because he actually won Money in the Bank that year, and Damian Priest is one of my favorites. I was been a fan of his since NXT, so I think I would have gave the win to him there. Up next, we have Baron Corbin versus Logan Paul. You're probably thinking, okay, that's not the biggest WrestleMania match of all time, but I think Logan Paul was still trying to be used as a babyface at the time, and I think Baron Corbin would have been the perfect person to try and somewhat get him over as a babyface because who in the hell in the right mind would cheer Baron Corbin? I mean, nothing against the guy personally, but he's another one who's more, naturally a heel. So yeah, I have them here going. I probably would have given the win to Logan Paul. Up next, we have the Intercontinental Championship. Gunther defend against Drew McIntyre. Pretty much half of what we got. Just a one-on-one match instead of a triple threat match. And I probably would have given the win to Drew McIntyre here, just to give him that title win in front of a crowd, even though it's not the world title. But still, I think Drew could have been one of the guys who had a chance of defeating Gunther for that title. So yeah. Up next we have a no holds barred street fight. Bayley versus Becky Lynch, because as you know, Bayley and Becky had been feuding ever since SummerSlam the previous year, and they brought in Damage Control and everything, and they fought at War Games. They, ended up having a six-woman tag match, so they had this feud drawn out for a long time, and they had a steel cage match on Raw, which I think, if anything, should have been the blow off to their feud at WrestleMania. Instead, one-on-one. I obviously booked this before it brought in lead interest, so I think it would have been, if you're gonna drag this out and you're gonna end it at WrestleMania, then do it. So instead of a random Monday Night Raw, so I would have had the blow off match here between Bayley and Becky in a no holds bar street fight. I love Bayley, I love Becky Lynch, but I think I would have gave the win to Becky on this one. Up next, we have Bray Wyatt versus Karrion Kross. Of course, as you know, Bray Wyatt did not compete at WrestleMania. He was originally supposed to face Bobby Lashley, I believe, but then he had got sick, and his last match was that year at the Royal Rumble against LA Knight. We didn't know it at the time. We also didn't know that would have been the last time that we saw Bray Wyatt on WWE TV, um, because, like I say, he fell ill and everything, and he ended up, passing away this year, that year, which was a really, really devastating loss. I actually, I cried. I know, I got emotional with that. I don't really, I actually, honestly don't get too emotional like that when when a celebrity dies because we were never close to everything. You didn't grow up with them. They weren't in your life, like literally. But Bray Wyatt was a wrestler that I loved. I liked him when he came up from NXT, the whole Wyatt family theme, and I thought he was like really good at what he does. He was a really good storyteller. He was really just really good. He was one of those great guys that could have been a lot more. And then they released him like 2 years prior, and it was like everyone was upset. Why would they do that? And then when Triple H took over, he was one of the guys that he brought back. And then they had the months of speculation. He came back at Extreme Rules. Speaking of being on vacation, I was actually on vacation in Boston when he came back at Extreme Rules. And then he had, months of, promo battles with LA Knight. He came out, defeated him at the Royal Rumble. And then this is when they had pretty much introduced the whole Uncle Howdy thing as well. So yeah, unfortunately, we did not get Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, and I obviously booked this before, he fell ill, so I have him going against Karrion Kross. I actually feel like that could have been like somewhat a little similar dynamic since they both deal with eerie stuff like that. I think they could have did something well. I would have gave the win to Bray Wyatt, but rest in peace to one of the best WWE superstars of the modern time, taken too soon. Rest in peace to you. So up next, we have the Raw Women's Championship, Bianca Belair defending against the winner of the Royal Rumble in this timeline, Rhea Ripley. I would still give the Royal Rumble win to Rhea, um, and I would have her challenge Bianca Belair instead because I feel like they have been building to this match for quite some time. They just haven't yet really pulled the plug on it, and I think they could have really built off the whole how these two were two of the top women in NXT, and I'm surprised they didn't do that with the match they had at last year's WrestleMania, the triple threat between Rhea, Bianca, and Io. I was really waiting for them to bring that up, but they really didn't. How those were like the three top names in NXT at that time, and they never really played off of that. So I would have Bianca defending against Rhea Ripley, and I would give the win to Rhea Ripley because this was around the time when I was actually starting to become a fan of Rhea. Up next, we have Hell in a Cell, Edge versus Finn Balor. Pretty much what we got, keeping the same thing to build up the story, everything, the winner, keeping the same thing. Up next, we have. So I've kind of had to think about how the hell did I have this in my notes as a match, but then I thought about it. I remembered the team of. This is pretty much one of those little cool down matches. Alpha Academy against Kurt Angle and Gable Stevenson. You're probably wondering who in the blue hell is Gable Stevenson. Well, as you recall, he was, I think, a former Olympic, how do you call him? Olympic in the Olympics. Well, just my mind went blank. What the hell they call him? But he was a Olympic medalist wrestler. I think he was. My mind just went blank. And they were like pretty much touting him as like one of the next big things. He was like a big name in the draft they had that they were gonna draft in the Raw, and then he would like pop up here and there in the crowd. You can tell that they really really wanted Gable Stevenson to be the next big thing. The way they're presenting him and everything, the way they were like promoting him, and of course, Alpha Academy is they're also Olympians with Chad Gable and everything. That's their whole gimmick. And I think he would have. Well, where I think this could have went was, they had Gable Stevenson in the crowd. Alpha Academy, Chad Gable comes out, and they have a little beef or whatever because he's also Olympian. They would then challenge Gable Stevenson to a match at WrestleMania with a mystery partner, who would turn out to be another former Olympic gold medalist, Kurt Angle. And I also think this could have been like a nice little quick squash, nice little cool down after the Hell in a Cell. And this would have been a better way for Kurt Angle to end his career, as in an actual wrestling match instead of what we got with Baron Corbin a couple years prior, because nobody wanted that. So yeah, I think it would have been a nice little quick 5 minute squash match. Kurt Angle and Gable Stevenson defeating Alpha Academy, which would have gave Chad plenty of time to, he does good as a lose no heel and everything. So that would have been pretty good right there. And then in our main event, we have the United States Championship. Seth Rollins defending against Cody Rhodes. You're probably like, what the hell? Yes, I have Cody Rhodes challenging for the United States Championship against Seth Rollins because I think a little before Austin Theory was the United States champion, he won from Seth Rollins. And if you recall, the year prior, Cody and Seth had that Hell in a Cell match where Cody tore his pectoral and everything. And I think I would have had Cody Rhodes come back at the Royal Rumble. Of course, that year they announced he was going to be in the Royal Rumble. I think it would have been better if they didn't and had him come out, surprise at number 30. So in this timeline, Cody Rhodes returns at the Royal Rumble, and he doesn't win because Seth Rollins costs him the match. This ends up, they continue their feud that they had the year prior, and they give it a definitive finish. Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes in the main event for the United States Championship. And I would have given the win to Cody Rhodes. Plus, not saying he didn't deserve to be in the main event, but I think I would have, if I was in charge, I think I would have built up a little bit more because he just came back the following year. And I would have rather had him wrap up that bow with Seth Rollins and then from there go on, set his sights on Roman Reigns and the WWE title. And I would have built that up, for another year. But I mean, they pretty much did. But even though he got the title match this year and they built up for another year of him finishing the story, I think I think I wouldn't have gave him that title match right away. Like I said, I would let him build up that whole year's worth of, waiting. So going on, where does that leave Roman Reigns for this WrestleMania? We'll get to that in a bit. So start kicking off WrestleMania Night 2 is pretty much the main event we got of Night 1. The tag team titles, the Usos defend against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I had no idea it was pretty obvious they were going to go for this tag team match. I honestly didn't think they were going to have it as the main event. Did it deserve it? Yes, it did. But I would have had this match with all the other stuff I got going on. I would have had this match in the main event, and so yeah, but not the main event, the opening match, and I still would have given the win to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, which would give doubt to the Bloodline. Okay, well we lost our titles in the opening match. Are we going to lose our title in the main event? Up next, I have a triple threat match for the women's tag team titles. I have the team of Damage Control's Dakota Kai and Io Sky defending against the team of Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, and for some reason, Candice LeRae and Mia Yim. I have no idea why the hell I have Candice LeRae and Mia Yim in a tag team match at WrestleMania. Nothing against them, I like Candice and everything. Mia Yim, she's alright. I mean, I think if anything, I should have kept it a standard tag team match, Dakota and Io against Ronda and Shayna. I guess I just wanted to get more people on the card. Uh, yeah, that's not hindsight. It's really weird. Like, why the hell did I? Like I said, nothing against them, but I think the standard tag team match would have been better. Dakota and Io, who can really go, are pretty much good wrestlers. Dakota Kai, I really miss in WWE. I think she could have been a lot better than what she was given. Io Sky is right now I could probably say one of my current big three. My original big three in WWE were Sasha, Becky, and Alexa Bliss. And I think if I had to pick my big three right now in the current WWE, it would probably be Liv Morgan, Io Sky, and Tiffany Stratton. Like I said, I like Ronda. I liked her in her WWE. I didn't really follow her too much in UFC. Um, Shayna Baszler is an ass kicker that I thought they could have done a lot better. I really thought they should have used her as a female Brock Lesnar. Like I said, Candice LeRae, I like Candice. She's not one of my top favorites, but I like her. Mia Yim, Michin, whatever you want to call her. I mean, she's alright. I mean, I don't have anything against her like that, but I just still find it weird. Why the hell I had a triple threat match with them involved? But yeah, I think I would have gave the win to Ronda and Shayna in this one. Up next, we have John Cena versus Austin Theory, pretty much, which is pretty much the match we got just without the United States title. And I think they could have gone both ways with or without the title. Pretty much the same match, the same build up and everything. Give Austin Theory what would be considered his biggest win of his career in this match, even though it didn't really do too much for him in hindsight. So yeah. Up next we have the women's version of the Money in the Bank ladder match. And talking about bias, I put a lot of my favorites, and we have Asuka, Alexa Bliss, who was a favorite, Sachi, another one, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Emma, Lacey Evans, and Sonya Deville. About 4 or 5 of these are considered my favorites. Asuka, I never really been like a favorite, been one of my favorites. I like her as a wrestler. She's never really been one of my favorites though. Alexa Bliss, as I said, was one of my original big three. Sachi was one of my big three in NXT, along with Tegan Nox and Toni Storm. So I've always been a Sachi fan, and I really suck. I really hate that they let her go. I mean, I know she wasn't the best promo, but I really hope one day she finds her way back. Liv Morgan, I love, is one of my current big three. Raquel Rodriguez, I like her as a wrestler. It's never really been one of my favorites. Emma was someone I really liked, and I was glad they brought her back. Lacey Evans was like, I'll be honest, she's kind of starting to grow on me, but she didn't really become my favorite. Sonya Deville was someone who really, really grew on me. I really wasn't too much of a fan of her when she made her debut, but as the years went on, she grew on me a lot, and I really respected and liked her. And she actually was what I consider her one of my top favorites before she was let go, and I would love to see her back because I fell in love with Sonya Deville. I thought she was absolutely amazing, and I think I would give the win this match to Asuka because I think she was probably the biggest name in this match at that time. Of course, we know Liv Morgan would go on to become one of the biggest names. Alexa Bliss had just made her return, I believe, or I think she might have left shortly after this because she had got pregnant with her child. So yeah. Up next, I did something another first unique thing I did. I present to you the first ever Andre the Giant tag team battle royal. Now I thought about going with a standard Andre the Giant battle royal, but like I said, they had brought back so many released superstars from this time. Uh, and there was I felt like the tag division was actually pretty stacked at this time because look at all here are all the tag teams I have in this match. We have the New Day, who are the New Day, of course. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, who were brought back. We have the Street Profits, um, Dolph Ziggler and Mustafa Ali. I'm like, why the hell are they tag teaming? But then I remembered, I think they have like a storyline going on where Dolph Ziggler was the veteran and Mustafa Ali was, the guy trying to make a name for himself, and they ended up being a tag team. We have Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander, who were formerly a part of the Hurt Business, but then they broke up, but they were still tag teaming. And then we have Hit Row, who was also brought back by Triple H, the Viking Raiders, Imperium, who were recently brought up to the main roster from NXT, um, Ludwig Kaiser and what the hell was his name? Giovanni Vinci. And then they had pretty much separated them on NXT, but then they brought them back up as a tag team. Then we have Butch and Ridge Holland, Legado del Fantasma, Los Lotharios, I think were Angel and Berto, I believe it was, Mace and Mansoor, who were pretty much a that model tag team. And then we have the team of Ricochet and Braun Strowman, who were tag teaming at the time, Omos and MVP. And then we have Johnny Gargano and Dexter Loomis. Dexter Loomis had been brought back. Johnny Gargano had re-signed. Pretty much, yes, it sucks to have someone of Johnny Gargano's, wrestling prowess in a batch like this, but I really didn't have anywhere else to put him. And like I said, that's actually a pretty stacked tag team division when you really think about it. And like I said, all the superstars they brought back, I thought about when they brought him, okay, where are they going to use this guy at WrestleMania? Or when they brought back so and so, okay, are they going to use them at WrestleMania like a four-way for the tag titles? Of course, the tag team titles were unified still, So I would have this match, the winner of this match get a tag team title shot. And I think I would give the win to, well, since Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn won the titles in the opening match, I think I would give the win to, you know what? I think I will go with Ricochet and Braun Strowman. Just to, you know, see how that would have played out. Two babyface tag teams challenging for the tag team titles. Up next, we have another match that we got Dominic Mysterio versus Rey Mysterio. I had also booked this for the year prior, but they did not go that way. Instead, they waited a whole year to do it. And I think I would do the same thing, keep the same thing, how it was. Up next, we have the SmackDown Women's Championship. Now, if you recall a few videos prior to this, I mentioned many times there would be a lot of bias in these videos, especially when it comes to my favorite female wrestlers. And I told you there was going to be a point later on down the road where there's going to be some really big bias. And I don't know if you noticed whose shirt I'm wearing right now. So at WrestleMania 39, I have Charlotte defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Tegan Nox. Yes, you heard that right. The girl with the shiniest wizard, the Welsh firecracker, Tegan Nox, the most undervalued, underappreciated, underutilized, underrated women's superstar in professional wrestling. I said